In June, it will have been 2 years since WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange took up permanent refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy in London.
Yes, of course, it is difficult to wake up for nearly 500 days and see the same walls. On the other hand, I'm doing good work. I have no time for anything else now but work.
Recently, Assange has been in the news because of a lengthy essay published in a British periodical this month. Journalist Andrew O'Hagan was working as the ghostwriter on Assange's autobiography until the project collapsed due to differences between writer and subject. O'Hagan explained what happened, in his opinion, in the pages of the London Review of Books. Quote, "The man who put himself in charge of disclosing the world's secrets," O'Hagan wrote, "simply couldn't bear his own." The article provided plenty of ammunition for Assange's critics, but it also brought out his defenders. In The Guardian, Colin Robinson complained that the media's obsessive focus on Assange's character has ignored his accomplishments. This is someone who can number among his achievements the founding of WikiLeaks, the publication of the Iraq and Afghanistan war logs, and the smuggling of Edward Snowden to safety. While the debate continues over exactly how much damage WikiLeaks has done to American foreign policy and its national security interests, without Assange, the world never would have had access to the sobering, unsanitized details of America's 2 wars in the Middle East. Upon their release in July of 2010, the New York Times called WikiLeaks' release of the Afghanistan war logs, quote, "an unvarnished, ground-level picture of the war in Afghanistan that is in many respects more grim than the official portrayal." Assange also forced the world to confront the issue of civilian casualties, like those documented in WikiLeaks' infamous collateral murder video, and also to challenge the notion of clean warfare at a time of increasing public wariness for battle. Tomorrow, Julian Assange will address the South by Southwest Festival in Austin via satellite. But first, he joins me now, publisher and founder of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. Julian, thank you so much for joining us. I know we have a short delay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get right into the questions. And I want to start first with your thoughts on sort of the universe as it stands now. At one point, you wrote in your book, Cyberpunks, "The internet, our greatest tool for emancipation, has been transformed into the most dangerous facilitator of totalitarianism we have ever seen." And I'm sure there are people that would agree with that, but on the same note, it's enabling you and Edward Snowden, the internet is, to speak at South by Southwest. Isn't that evidence that it could be a good thing, a very good and important thing as well?
Well, that's the battle. That's the point of history, where we could go one way or we could go the other way. I wrote those words about a year ago now, and it was hard for many people to believe them at the time. But after the Edward Snowden revelations have come out, people have seen widely that those who had been researching this issue for many years, like me or James Bamford, were largely correct. Now, this communication we're having now, and a subsequent one I'll have at South by Southwest, is a part of what is good about the internet. That yes, on the one hand, we are in many ways heading towards a transnational, dystopian, total surveillance society, the likes of which the world has never seen, an extremely grim possible future. And on the other, well, people are coming together. Whenever people can communicate, they develop new values and a new consensus and a new polity. That is something that all young people are exposed to. It's something that Edward Snowden was exposed to, and the very people that have to be hired by these intelligence agencies, placing an important restraint on their behavior. And that's something even now that the former CIA and NSA Director Hayden has publicly said is the biggest challenge to the CIA and NSA, the need to recruit young people who have a belief in transparency.
Julian, you mentioned Michael Hayden. There are administration officials who have come out and said we need to make reforms. The president himself announced a raft of NSA reforms in January. What was your reaction to those?
Well, look, there's a real question about who's wearing the pants. It's been 6 months now since the Edward Snowden revelations started to occur. In that time, have we seen the commencement of a criminal investigation against Clapper for lying to Congress, for anyone in the National Security Agency for violating the law, the US Constitution? No. Have we seen the firing of a single person associated with those breaches of the rights of American citizens and arguably others as well? The answer is no. A single enforced resignation The answer is no. So who really calls the shots in the executive? Is it Barack Obama? Is it Clapper? Is it Alexander? Is it the intelligence complex as a whole? Because from the outside, it's a very worrying sign. We know when the government takes something seriously. It starts a formal investigation, it fires people, it reduces its budgets. We haven't seen that. So the question is, does the civilian leadership have effective control of the 16 agency intelligence group under Clapper, under the DNI?
So, I mean, just to be clear, you see no positive evolution from this administration on the subject of surveillance?
There's been a very positive public evolution, a very positive public understanding, and that public understanding is going to cause, and is already causing, some constraints in behaviour. It's generating a very serious market for privacy protecting technology. It's causing other governments like Brazil and Germany to demand to be treated with respect, fibre optic cables being laid on paths where there's no interception. Even for us, Glenn Greenwald published new Snowden documents just last week showing that I personally was on an NSA manhunting list, literally called manhunting, with Al-Qaeda suspects. The readers of WikiLeaks have been intercepted by a GCHQ operation, at least in 2012. So a lot of people becoming very aware. And from that, many other things fall out. And so I think we will see some important progress. But it's not coming properly from inside the administration. It's coming from the public sphere, from journalists, and even now from some industrialists like Pierre Omidyar, the founder of eBay, who see that, well, you can have $8 billion, but really, what good does it do you if your society is heading towards some kind of surveillance totalitarianism?
I'm curious, if we talk about evolution and the forces that shaped that evolution, what do you think WikiLeaks' most significant contribution to that evolution in terms of public awareness and public engagement on the issue of surveillance has been? From your perspective, what has been most meaningful?
Well, if you look at surveillance, we published Spy Files 1, Spy Files 2, Spy Files 3, this book Cypherpunks, and then Edward Snowden happened, which changed a lot. I think it's really that through the people over the last 4 years seeing our fight to survive as a small publisher, publishing serious matters about war and diplomacy and succeeding, we were involved in shifting the internet from a politically apathetic space going back 2009 to a politically engaged space where young people felt that this was the place that they lived, the place that they are educated in. And people like Edward Snowden are an example of that phenomenon. And that's a big cultural change that we've seen. If you talk about a concrete, precise action in relation to the current debate about the National Security Agency, well, as far back as 2007, we were writing serious articles about this, showing how the interception points worked across the world. But the most important thing that we've done is get Edward Snowden to safety, where he can continue to consult and advise and act as an incentive for other people to come forward in a similar manner, which has already happened.
Let me ask you about Edward Snowden, because you too will be speaking along with Chelsea Manning tomorrow via satellite at South by Southwest. What is your correspondence with Edward Snowden like these days? I mean, to what degree are you still giving him guidance and advice, and when was the last time you spoke?
Well, you know, it's the nature of our business and the nature of our opponents that, unfortunately, we can't speak about precise communications details because, well, just outside, the UK government has admitted publicly to spending £5.3 million, $8 million in the last 18 months surveilling this embassy, just with the police forces alone, not including its actions with GCHQ. But we've been involved in Edward Snowden's defence fund, obviously protecting him in various ways and trying to facilitate interpretation, understanding of the data that he has revealed. He is doing something quite important in turning up at South by Southwest on Monday and made an important intervention at the European Union looking into these issues as well. So, you know, it's releasing information is one thing, but it's also important to subsequently provide context and be an important symbol. And he has become, and his freedom has become an important symbol, if you like, almost a referendum on whether it is right for this information to be revealed.
Yeah, and I should correct myself. I said that Chelsea Manning would be speaking. Of course, Chelsea Manning cannot be speaking via satellite. It's Glenn Greenwald who is speaking, and I apologize to our audience if they were getting excited about that.
Well, if only Chelsea Manning could be there. If only Chelsea Manning could also be there. And I suppose that shows you something, that he has been censored from communicating effectively with the public. Edward Snowden has not been censored from communicating effectively with the public. The answer is, well, how? Asylum.
Julian, but let me ask you, we don't, before I let you go, and I know you have many things that you're working on at present, but you know, you are in the Ecuadorian embassy. The statute of limitations on your extradition request to Sweden expires in 2020 or 2022. Do you plan to stay at the embassy till then? And I would ask, concurrent to that or subsequent to that, do you feel as if you have gotten a raw deal? Because many people will look and say, this man, as Edward Snowden, and say the same thing of Snowden, which is you've done things that are highly controversial. People would like to see you on trial, and you are, yes, confined, but in fairly comfortable confines. How is life for you at this moment? And do you think it's fair to issue complaints given that you have that? And do you think it's fair for Edward Snowden to complain given that he has not stood trial in the United States?
Well, I think one can complain about the fair process. I mean, we've had a grand jury going in the United States now for some 3.5 years, the biggest investigation to a publisher that has ever occurred. Perhaps unconstitutional, certainly if it came to court, would be unconstitutional. That's something that never should have been done. But we're winning in the political realm. Let's step back for a moment. We went head-to-head with the Pentagon over revealing the deaths of more than 100,000 people that have been killed as a result of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we won. We were threatened that those documents must be destroyed. We destroyed nothing. We published everything we're going to publish. We've never censored anything. We went head-to-head with the State Department, and we won. We went head-to-head with the National Security Agency in relation to protecting Edward Snowden, and we won. None of our staff, with the exception of myself briefly, have been arrested or imprisoned. We've fought off an international unlawful extrajudicial banking blockade, successfully beating it in the courts and the European Parliament. So while things are, yes, they are physically difficult for me, they're much more physically difficult, of course, for people like Chelsea Manning. I think that history is on our side, and that's becoming quite clear to nearly everyone now. We have to wonder what is going to be the real legacy of the Barack Obama administration. It's not shaping up to be good, while our legacy is, I think, something that myself and all our staff can be very proud of.
Julian, just on that last bit about your plans, I mean, it's what is it, 2014 now, so the extradition request to Sweden expires in 2020 or 2022. Do you intend to stay where you are at?
Well, in relation to Sweden, I haven't even been charged yet. I mean, that's really a very absurd case, and you can read about it, justiceforassange.com. The serious issue is the ongoing US grand jury investigation, which is a serious threat. I mean, Bradley Manning was sentenced to 35 years in prison. We shouldn't underestimate the seriousness of that threat. It's not just against me. That threat is also something that other staff are subject to. Sarah Harrison, one of our people, is now in effective exile in Berlin, as is Laura Poitras, Jacob Appelbaum, Glenn Greenwald's in effective exile in Rio. There's something pretty interesting going on here where the West is now somewhere you seek asylum from, or at least the Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-American sphere. But fortunately, we now live in a world where you can, having taken asylum or having had to go to another country, you can still publish and still talk freely, provided you can keep yourself out of prison.
WikiLeaks' Julian Assange, thank you for your time. And of course, you will be speaking via satellite tomorrow at the South by Southwest Festival. We encourage everybody to tune in. Another scintillating conversation. Thank you for your time. Coming up, we will have more from Austin live after the break.